Everyone, Tim Stoddart here, and in this week's video, we're going to talk about climbing the wealth ladder. The phrase and the concept of the wealth ladder is something that has really helped me build my wealth, my income, and especially pertains to online entrepreneurs because we can use content marketing, we can use online branding to help us scale the rate at which our business grows. So the wealth ladder is very important. It's something that I'm always thinking about. I keep it top of mind as I'm working on adding new sources of income and creating new businesses, or even trying to build the current businesses. And I really think it'll be valuable for you as well. So let's dive right in. Before I go any further into explaining the wealth ladder, I highly encourage you to read this article by Nathan, nathanberry.com/wealth-creation. I will put this in the show notes of the YouTube video and also on the Spotify video. Um, Reading this article was the first time that I thought about this in a way that was tangible and defined. I never heard anybody define this as like a word, a definition, right? A wealth ladder. Reading this article made it as something that was sort of like a cool idea into something that was very tangible. So I encourage you to read this article. And I also want you to notice that in the introduction, I talked about the 5 stages, and Nathan only has 4 stages in this. Um, Hang on to that because we're gonna get into that later on in the video. So the first stage of the wealth ladder is time for money. The second stage is own your own service business. The third stage is productize services. The fourth stage in the ladder is selling products. And the fifth stage is actually investing. And we're going to talk about this in more detail. So let's just go through them. Time for money. I don't have an example to show you guys, but this is pretty self explanatory. It just means that you're working a job. By the way, if you're working a job, you can continue to work your job and still put yourself in a position to climb the wealth ladder, to go through these different stages, whether it's a side hustle, whether it's just like skipping all the way to the end to get to investing. I think one of the unfortunate aspects of entrepreneurship is like a lot of time we like to downplay working a 9 to 5 as if you're getting a paycheck, you're some kind of sucker. I don't think that's the case at all. When I was growing up, I did contracting. I built houses for many years. So I know what it's like to wake up in the morning and go to a job. All work is noble. Don't ever forget that. Nonetheless, the first stage of the wealth ladder is just trading your time for money. So this means for every hour you work, you get a set rate of income, usually in the form of a weekly paycheck. Okay, so the second stage is own your own service business. This basically means that you're still trading your time for money, but the difference is you have employees here. So you can scale your time at the rate that you bring on new employees. So this is a funny example that I have to show you. This is in the Wayback Machine from 2015, and this was the first ever Stasi internet marketing website. Unfortunately, it's so far back in the Wayback Machine database that the styling has just kind of gone away. Anybody that uses Wayback Machine knows that this happens, but it's a funny trip down memory lane. But I also want to show you that there's nothing systematized about this business. Basically, we would take any client that we could get and we would do any kind of work that the client needed from us. There was nothing systematized. There was nothing productized about the services. Basically, somebody said, I need this done. And we'll say, great, I'll charge you this much for it. And we did it. So the difference is the difference between having a service business and trading your time for money, whether that's a job or freelancing, is that there's still an amount of scalability here because at this rate, I hired somebody that was good at pay-per-click. So granted, there was still no system in the pay-per-click service that we provided, but I could still scale my time. I wasn't the one doing the actual pay-per-click. At this point, I was doing most of the consulting. I wasn't doing a lot of the blog writing. I definitely wasn't doing any of the social media, and I was kind of overseeing a lot of the SEO. But it's funny to see this website. I wish I had like the full version of it because it's actually still one of my favorite websites that we've ever done. Nonetheless, this was the first stage of me climbing the wealth ladder. So the second stage is productized services. This basically means that you still have a service business. In my case, this is an agency, but you've packaged your services in a way that makes them very easy to replicate. So that's where I'm at now. with Stodzy Internet Marketing. You guys have all seen this website before. I talk about this business a lot because it's just such a great use case in many different examples. The way I was able to productize this is by sticking to a specific industry. And this is something that I really encourage everybody to do. The smaller down your niche, the easier it is to productize. So I have to give a little bit of like an asterisk here because it's not a completely productized business in the way that some other service businesses are, where I'm not totally replicating the same service over and over and over again. However, we've built a system, and the system by and large is easily replicated. Granted, when you work with clients, it's easier said than done, where you just make a productized service because every client is different, even though they're all in the same industry. Uh, Nonetheless, this is the next level of scale. The amount of scale that I'm able to create, the difference from this business where I would just take on anybody that would give me work, compared to this business where I have an easy replicable service that I can more or less mass produce. This drives up your profit margins a lot. This makes you a more of an industry in a particular, a more of an authority in a particular industry. And so you get referred business a lot easier. And it makes you able to charge more. So you can charge more for doing less at an increased volume of supply. So you can see how the rates in revenue and profits are much different. Here's probably a better example of a real productized business where it's almost like an assembly line where you're just stamping out the same thing over and over again. This is a cool company called Bite Sized. I don't know who the owners are. I know that Sahil is involved somehow, and this is cool. And you can see that it's a true productized business because they even have their pricing on the website, and you can more or less like buy the service at the particular rate that you want. So they have a single serving, which is 6K a month, and a dinner for two. It's a cool little play on words, which I like. But nonetheless, like the services are sold almost as if they're products, they're packages. It's much more replicable. So this is cool. I personally think that there still are some downsides here because you really limit yourself to the amount of people that you can work with, and that's just my personal opinion. I like solving new problems every day, and I like building like a consultancy wing of my agency where we can handle a little bit more customized work. That customized work is very, very lucrative. And so that's my personal preference. Nonetheless, I still think that this is a really cool example. All right, the fourth stage, I should say, in Nathan's wealth ladder is selling products. So the difference between services and products is the cost of replication. So you have to understand, no matter how much you productize your service, it still costs money to fulfill that service. You still have people on the payroll, you still have audits and proposals and all that stuff to write out, which is still very manual. But when you get to digital products, the reason why this scales so much higher, I mean, if this ladder, this visual was in like an accurate visual scale, like this ladder, this fourth one would be like 4 or 5 times bigger. In some cases, like 1,000 times bigger, just because the cost of creating the product is basically zero. And fulfilling that product is basically zero. The only thing that limits you in the amount of money you can make is the amount of sales you can make because it doesn't cost any money to fulfill that product. So this is a great example. Copyblogger Academy is a membership site. Once we've built the membership, you don't have to build it anymore, right? It's done. All of the work is done. Now, granted, that's an oversimplification because you still have employees that have a community manager. We have to do customer service. All of that stuff still costs money, but nonetheless, fulfilling the actual product, the cost is as close to zero as we could possibly get it. So every time you make a new sale, the profit margins on that sale are so high because there's nothing like pulling the profit margins down in terms of cost of fulfilling the product. So there's many examples here. Copyblogger Academy is a membership site. This certainly isn't the only thing that you can do. Let me pull up some more examples. So I figured since we're using Nathan's article, we would use Nathan's company as another example. So this is ConvertKit. This is a email marketing software. And this is a perfect example because once the product is built, obviously there's still overhead, there's still customer service. You have to hire developers and marketers and all that stuff, but the the cost of replicating the product is almost zero because the product is already built. So there's many different levels here, and you can see the ConvertKit is like a multi-million dollar business because of the model that it's in. Another cool example and something that I think is a little bit closer to home for most of us is Steph Smith's course. Actually, it's a book, I believe. It's just an ebook. Is called Doing Content Right. So she spent weeks and months creating the product. It was actually really cool to watch her do because she wrote the product and documented her process of creating the product in front of everybody. So the people that were willing to follow along basically got the product for free. And then this is just a simple Gumroad landing page. There's nothing very fancy about it. You know, she didn't create a whole blog. She didn't create like a whole social media brand. She just built the product, she put it on Gumroad, and she started selling it through her Twitter. So she made 4,993 sales. Let's see how much that is. So 4,993 times 150 equals $748,000. So I believe that she had some kind of sliding scale where the first couple people that bought it got it at a cheaper rate than $150. Nonetheless, let's just assume that it was $150 a person, which is perfectly reasonable. You know, let's even take 25% off of that. That's $500,000 for a product, for one product. It's all profit. Once you create the product, you don't have to create it again. All you have to do is sell it. So your profit margins are extremely high. Lastly, like I said, there's a fifth stage of climbing the wealth ladder. Nathan didn't put it in his article, but that final stage is investing. So I have really transitioned myself more to an investor than anything else. I don't build companies too much anymore. I like to either buy companies or buy into companies. And and this is my portfolio. This is a great example. I've been building a personal holdings company and I bought or invested into all of these companies. This is really the fifth stage of climbing the wealth ladder because the game is just totally different. There's not even a cost of replication. There's your time is infinite, or I shouldn't say infinite. The scale is infinite because even though we all have 24 hours a day, all I have to do is write a check, and then there's a complete company, there's an army out there doing the work for me. You know, obviously I need the capital, and capital isn't free, it takes time. But what's really interesting about investing is that once you make a couple good investments and the cash flow starts coming in, then the only limit you have is the amount of cash flow. But the more investments you make, ideally, the more cash flow you get, which just means that the rate of growth is almost parabolic, right? So we've seen a ton of investors, USV. So you okay? Yeah, this is like one of, in my opinion, the coolest venture firms out there. So venture means that they invest in new companies. It's very high risk. You're investing in startups basically at the stage where there's hardly even a proof of concept, but the reason why venture can be so profitable is because once you're like the first people into the investment. So you get your equity at the cheapest rate and you get it before there's been any growth. So you can capture all of the upside. Um, I think another really great example is Scott Galloway. Um, he now has his own media company, basically, where, he's got a podcast. He's got two podcasts. He's got his newsletter, YouTube channel, speaking, books, and stuff like that. But like the vast majority of Professor Galloway's wealth came from investments that he made that he doesn't even necessarily talk about. But Professor Galloway uses the same model that I use, well, really, I should say I use the same model that he uses, where he uses his content as a way to build his reputation, and then as he builds his reputation, he gets more access to deals. So this, in my opinion, is kind of the holy grail, because you're still using content marketing. So if you use my personal brand as well, every single time I publish an article and I promote my investing firm, And it's a very small investing firm. It's just me. It's like a personal holdings company. It's a personal investing firm. But nonetheless, every single time I publish one of these articles and I talk about my portfolio, I get leads coming in. I get opportunities to make investments. So the fifth stage of the wealth ladder is investing, but it's not as though investing is on an island. The same philosophy, the same marketing tactics that we use to build our freelancing business, build our service business, build our productized service business, build our digital marketplace business, and build our personal investing firm. It's all the same strategy. You use content, you use branding, you use awareness, you use authority and publishing your ideas out there into the marketplace as a way to gain influence and to gain access to your deal flow. Thank you so much for watching this week's video. I hope that you can see these stages and you can reflect on where you are in the journey. I just want to reiterate, even if you have a day job, even if you are a freelancer where you're still trading your time for money, that's fine. You can climb these stages. You can create a product. You can try to productize your service business. You can even go straight from having a job to the fifth stage, which is investing, which is creating an automated investment uh, structure where you just put $100 a week into the S&P 500 or something like that. That's still the fifth stage of the wealth ladder because all you have to do is deposit that money, and then ideally your income and your wealth grows for you. If you have any questions, please leave a comment in the video. Like the video, smash that subscribe button. I'm always here to answer questions. And thank you so much. I will talk to you guys next week.